So we're looking here at the process of putting the electronics together for our Cube Light project, our Cube Light mood lights. And here's the model, one of the models that I have in the workshop here, which we use for testing panels and lighting effects. So I've plugged this into a micro USB socket. I have the LED here inside the box. And of course, these panels would have cutouts and decorations to let the light out and cast shadows onto the wall around. But in this case, it's just for testing purposes. You can see here that the wires go through the red positive and the black negative. The wires go through here to the underside of the box. I've got these feet here that lift the underside off the ground. So there's space for the electronics. The red wire comes to a switch that then passes through a resistor. That then goes to the power source, which is this micro USB socket here, and then that's the red lead, and the black lead goes direct here to the LED. So the wiring diagram, the circuit diagrams, and all the theory for this is covered in the course. And we have some bolts here, some hex head bolts, and you can see how the nuts come through there and just hold the circuit in place there. Okay, so that is the basic idea. And if I press on this little button here, you can see the light comes on and then turns off. Okay, so let's just disconnect this, bring that to the side, and let's have a see what we have here with the model that I'm going to put together now. Now, in the middle, the model that you just saw, there was a fourth side on here, or fourth panel, and I've actually kept that off because I'm wanting to be able to access this corner here where I'm going to be putting the micro USB socket underneath, and you can see that I've also got the holes here for my wires to lead through to pass through to the underside. So I'm going to take that panel away and not worry about that. If I have a look underneath here, you also see that I've got the little cutout here for where the micro USB socket is going to go. Okay, so the micro USB socket for the power supply. I'm going to open up my little foil bag here, which has got my components inside. This is an anti-static bag. Not really necessary for components like this because there are no chips on it. But if you have some integrated circuits with chips on, you have to make sure that you don't statically discharge those. Make sure that the wrapping there sadly goes in the bin. And here is our little micro USB socket. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do here is just make sure that this fits. So there's two holes here and there's two holes in the printed circuit board. And if I push that through the cutout that allows me to access that socket from the outside here, then I should see that the holes are going to line up there. And I'm also doing it this way around as well, rather than having the top of the circuit board exposed there, because I've found through experience that as people connect and disconnect the power supply to the micro USB socket, eventually this can get weakened and break away, and then the whole the chip no longer works, or the circuit no longer works there. So having it this way around, make sure that I basically sandwich this metal socket here between the printed circuit board and the base of the box, and that just makes the whole thing a little bit more secure. Okay, now I'm not going to bolt this in yet. I'm going to look at some more electronics here. In fact, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in my LED lights. Now you'll have noticed perhaps here that this LED light was quite a bit smaller. It's exactly the same LED bulb though at the end of the day. And what I did with this model is I used a glue gun to put it in there. The problem with glue gun is that as you heat the little joints here to solder, the glue actually melts and then it loses its stickiness. Basically, it ends up sort of coming off the base. So today I'm going to try some double-sided tape. I've stuck it on the bottom here, and I'm just going to finish off trimming the excess double-sided tape there, like that. Okay, and let's just make sure again that the waste goes in the bin. Okay, now here we go. Let's just try and remove the double-sided tape. I think I might just pause at this point because this could be a nightmare. And look at that, who'd have guessed? It came off straight away. But anyway, I'm glad I paused. Let's peel that off there. Now I'm going to put this in position, and I want to make sure that the positive pads of my little LED here, let's just make sure that this is in the middle of the camera. Now, is that going to focus? Yes, it is. Okay, these three pads at the top here are going to be the positive, and the 3 pads here at the bottom are all going to be negative. So I can solder onto any of those pads, which is actually useful because if you mess it up on one of the pads, there's another 2 to work with. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got that. So one of the pads is closest, the positive pad is close to one side, and the negative pad is close to the other, and that as a result should be nicely in the middle of the panel there at the bottom. Now to see, is it going to focus again? I think when I moved it to the top there was a problem with the focus, and I'm just going to try and get everything back into focus again. Okay, dearie me. Let's try and pause the video and make sure the focus comes back. Okay, well, we're going to keep going here. I'm just going to have to hold things up a bit higher, aren't I, so they can all be in focus. Right, so what is next? We've got that in place there. Now, I'm going to turn the soldering iron on here, which I should have done before, really. And I don't know whether you can see here, but there's a little digital display here, and that's going to be increasing all the way up to 333 degrees Celsius, which is the temperature that we work with here. Why 333? Because it's easy to remember. 260, I think, is the melting point of the solder we're going to be working with, which is basically a combination of tin and copper, mostly tin. And I'm actually wrong there. It's not tin and copper. That would be pewter. This is actually originally it was tin and lead, but they've replaced lead now with another alloy. So I just paused there and just double checked what kind of alloy it would be. Basically, it's going to be having some silver in there, some copper, and some other metals to make a suitable alloy for this to work as solder. But yeah, lead was banned from use in Europe in 2003, apparently. So there you go. Now we can only work with lead-free solder. Okay, right, now in the meantime, this has increased now to 333 degrees Celsius. We're ready to go. And what I'll just point out quickly here is that these soldering irons that we work with here have a safety feature, which means that after 2 or 3 minutes, this is actually set to 4 minutes, I'll put it to 3 minutes there. If it's not being used, the temperature cools down to 180 degrees, and that's to make sure that we don't burn out the tip of the soldering iron. If that happens, the thing to do is just turn it off with a switch here, turn it back on again, wait for 30 seconds, and you'll be back up to temperature. Okay, now the way I'm going to solder wires onto here, first of all with my soldering iron, I'm going to make sure I'm up to temperature. I'm just going to wipe it here on this wire wool, and that is going to make sure that I've got a nice shiny tip. Then I'm going to put some solder onto the soldering iron like this. Now, normally what I'd have here is a fan to extract some of the fumes here, which basically is flux coming off the solder, which is designed to remove oxygen. It's a gas that removes oxygen from the surrounding area when we're soldering, and that stops oxidization. But because I haven't got much space for the demonstration here, I've not got the fan installed, but make sure you have a fan running there to try and get the fumes away from your face. And let's have a see, yeah, this is still having a problem here with focusing. So I'm just wondering what I'm probably going to do here. Let's find something. Let's get the other box. And let's put that on top of the other box. Now I'm also just going to adjust my lighting. Oh, look, that's better there a bit, isn't it? Okay, I've got a light on the side here, which is supposed to be helping, and it's not really. So now that's off. Let's just clean the soldering iron again. Let's put a little bit of solder onto the soldering iron. Then I'm going to put my soldering iron onto one of these pads and then apply solder and make a blob of solder on that pad. Okay, just like that. That's going to be the positive side. Let's do the same here with the negative side. Okay, that is good to go. Let's put the soldering iron back there. Now I'm going to get my wire. Now I've got quite a lot of red wire here. Just going to put that out the way for a second. Quite a lot of red wire, and I just need to cut off a bit more than I think I will need here. So I'm going to probably cut off about, I don't know, 12 centimeters there. Let's cut that off. Let's get some black wire. Let's get about the same quantity. Okay, let's strip this. Now then, I did have some wire strippers here. This is badly organized. Well, that was exciting. There's some students in the workshop behind me working away, and they'd helped themselves to the wire cutters. So that's great. I'm glad they were proactive. Let's strip this back here. Now I don't need much for where the wire is going to solder onto the LED here. So that is going to be quite a small little bit of metal there exposed with the wire strippers, and then the other side here where I'm going to wire it onto other parts of the circuit. Well, it depends what I'm wiring onto, but I'm going to make that a little bit bigger there. And let's do the same over on this piece right here. Okay. I'm going to feed this through. Now I want this to be the red positive side. I'm going to feed it through here. I'm then going to bend this around. You can see that there. That wasn't a particularly good positioning of my hand there, was it? And then bend this around as well. So basically I want to try and hold that wire in position. Okay. Now, if you want to at this point, you could get some masking tape and you could start to tape this down. In fact, if I have a look at my other pre-made box here, you can see that I've got tape and things holding things in place there. So, you know what? Do I need to do that? Do I need to do that? I don't think I do in this particular case, but it's an option. There you go. Okay, now the soldering iron is just starting to cool down there. So let's turn it off, turn it back on again. I'm going to clean the tip of my soldering iron, put a little bit of solder in there just for heat transfer, and then push on top of that red wire down onto my pre-soldered pad. And it should only take about 4 seconds. It's because my temperature just dropped down a little bit there. There you go. And that you can hopefully see there has just bonded with the solder that wire onto the pad there. Okay, so let's now go with the negative black wire or ground wire here. Again, in the same way, I'm just going to bend that over to where I want it to be. Perhaps just wrap this over. Again, I can use some masking tape if I wanted that. I am not going to in this particular case. I think we're going to be absolutely fine. Clean tip, little bit of solder. I'm going to push it down onto the wire there. There, that worked better. That only took about 3 seconds. And that's now soldered onto the pad there. Okay, so let's have a look at what's happening underneath here. I can now, in fact, I think what I'm going to do, so what I don't want to do is kind of suddenly pull on these wires and then it puts kind of levers these soldered joints off here. So I think what I am going to do is get some masking tape at this point, and let's get about that much. And I'm just going to actually tape this on the bottom like this. And I think that is going to make sure that when I bend these back to work on them, there's no mechanical force being applied to the soldered joints here. So that seems quite sensible. Now, let's have a see. Where are we going to go next? I think that I am going to do, let's do the printed circuit board here. Okay, I think I'm going to go straight from the printed circuit board to the positive of the light. Then we'll have the resistor. Yeah, then I can have the resistor wired in with the switch somewhere over there. Let's do that. So with this little printed circuit boards here for the power supply, if you've got amazing eyesight, you'll see that this one at the top of the board here is called VCC. So that's our 5 volts positive power supply. And the one at the bottom here is called GND or ground. And these pads in the middle basically are for data transfer for USB connection. So all we want is the top one for red, and the VCC that is, and the bottom one, the ground, is for black. Now, actually, I've got far too much wire exposed here. So what I'm going to do is just get some side cutters and just trim off the excess wire there. And what you need to be doing with all these little offcuts is popping those in the bin straight away. Otherwise, they're just going to be potentially causing short circuits. Okay, so let's now push this through. Now, because I'm going to have it that way around, I'm actually going to push it through. As obviously VCC is there. So it was the top before, now it's going to be underneath. I'm just going to bend that back. And then let's see, how am I going to hold this in position here? Well, with our soldering stations here, we've got these crocodile clips, which you can kind of position around. Let's just bend that round like that so I can see what I'm doing. That looks good. Again, get the soldering iron, clean the tip, a little bit of solder for heat transfer, put it onto the connection between the pad and the wire, add in my solder, and I want the solder to run like a little volcano from the pad up the wire there. As I'm doing that, it's just started to cool down again. So let's just restart that to make sure that it's going to stay warm. And then that is now soldered onto VCC. So that is that side of the circuit done. And now I'm going to have all the circuits, all the other components connected to the black wire. Now, of course, I could have my components in series connected to the red wire, between between the power supply and the LED and then connect through. It doesn't matter in this series circuit which order we put the circuits in. I've got some resistors here. These are 10 ohm resistors because I want this high power LED to be running at to see it's a 3-watt bulb, wants to be running at about 200 milliamps. And I've also got these are actually, they're a bit excessive really. These are very large resistors because they're 3-watt resistors. Now I actually think maybe a 1 watt would have been enough there, but 3 watts going to be playing it safe. If we go with very small, like 0.6 watt resistors, they can get quite hot, and that's a bit of a fire hazard, so we need to avoid that. Okay, so let's get some thin nose pliers here. I'm going to bend the end of that round there, so it makes like a little hook. And I'm also going to bend the end of this wire around, so it makes a hook. I'm going to put those together like that. Make sure that's a nice tight crimping of the wire there. Now, can I get this again? Can I hold it like this? That looks rather nice, doesn't it? So like in this vertical position. I don't know how easy it is for you to see, but it certainly is easy for me to solder. So I can see the wires, exposed wires are just here. So the camera's not really focusing here, but I'm going to heat the wires. And then once the wires are hot, I'm going to add some solder in there. Let's have a see how that looks. And there you go. That's soldered that together quite nicely. It's a little bit warm to touch there, but I'm just cooling down nice and quickly. Okay, now looking at this, actually, this wire is far, far, far too long. If I have a look at this, I could have really trimmed that wire back there. But that's where we are. Let's see what's going to happen next. Next, I've got my switch here. Now, I'm going to bend this wire back again. I can just actually do that by hand because it's very thin metal. I'm just going to bring that round. I'm going to crimp that on. Actually, I can do this one. No, let's get the thin nose pliers there. Let's crimp that in there. Okay. And now I'm not actually going to, let's just hold that with crocodile clips. I'm not going to stick this down yet. I'm just going to solder it like this. And what I'm wanting to do with terminals like this where there's a hole, what I like to do is try and fill the hole with solder. For me, that tells me it's a really good connection. So again, a little bit of solder, heat the metal and the wire, and then I'm going to apply the solder there. Now in this particular case, now I don't need to fill the hole. It's a massive hole, isn't it? I don't need to fill the hole. There you go. But that's got a nice strong connection there between the bent resistor and the connector on the switch. Now I'm not going to stick this down yet because what I will want to do is I want to make sure that when it's all finished and I put this down, I want to make it so when I press on the box, you can hear, hopefully, that switch is working, but that's because I've not got this panel on the side here. It's kind of buckling to the side, okay? If I look at this panel here, this other design, I've got it so that the switch is raised up from the base of the box by some thin sheets of card. And what I've got here, just to show you this, I'm not going to put it all together, but I've got some thin sheets of card here with some double-sided tape. And what I can do here basically is double-sided tape again, take off the waxy paper, stick another bit on, another bit of double-sided tape, stick another piece of card on, and basically make a little kind of spacer out of multiple sheets of card that fits in there, and then I'll be able to stick that down. Now you can use a glue gun for this, and because there's no heat involved, a glue gun actually works just as well. But I thought I'd try some double-sided tape in this example. Okay, so we're almost there. We basically have the power going into the LED to the positive side, out to the negative side of the LED, through a resistor, that's the ballast resistor that protects the LED from getting damaged. Then we have the switch, and then finally here we need to go back to the power supply. Now, in this particular case, I feel as if I should have perhaps trimmed back some of this wire here and then reused it to wire back to the power supply. But I haven't, so that's a bit of an oversight on my part. Now I'm going to try and get a little bit of wire here, which is, not too long, not too excessive. That looks about right there. That's probably about 8 centimeters, I would guess. Let's just trim this back here. And in this particular case, I want to have one slightly longer where it goes into the switch and the other one on the short side where it goes into the printed circuit board. And the same thing again here. Let's just spin this round. I can see my power, my heat there on the soldering iron has gone down a little bit. Now this, I'm going to have to use the thin nose pliers because this wire is a slightly larger gauge. So let's just bring that in like that. Okay, let's just clip this on with a crocodile clip to hold it in position. Make sure I've got a clean tip. Heat the join, apply the solder. Now, I'm not so convinced, but no, it's okay. It's all right. It's not quite as convincing, but it's okay. And then this wire is going to come round. And again, this wire, I'm just going to bend it up a little bit like this. That's going to go into the ground side of the printed circuit board. So make sure that that is all wired up correctly. Let's just make sure that we're holding this again with our crocodile clip. Clean tip, little bit of solder. Heat the pad and the wire simultaneously, so that the solder runs from the pad up the wire like a little volcano. What you don't want here are little kind of balls on the wire, because that shows that the solder has made a ball on the wire but hasn't flowed onto the pad below. And that basically should be the circuit working. Now, fingers crossed. Let's actually give this a test, and then I'm going to add the power supply, the micro USB socket here. I'm going to bolt it down into the box, but I don't know if that switch is on yet. Okay, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's find out. Okay, and there we are. There's my light working. So obviously it was on, off, on. Very nice. Lovely golden glow there. Okay, I'm just going to run that for a few seconds and just put my fingers on that resistor there. Yeah, and that resistor is staying nice and cool there, which shows that that's going to be nice and safe. Fantastic. Okay, now then, so let's just turn it off. Let's disconnect the power supply. Let's put our little bolts in here at this point. Now, I'm actually going to make it so that the bolt is going to come through from the back here, because you'll see why in a second. I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to put this on here. In fact, naturally, what I need to do first, silly me, I don't want to do that, do I? What I want to do is feed it into the little hole here first. Let's make sure that's going in there. Nice. Then I'm going to put my bolts through. 1, 2. And when I bolt this up, I want it to be, sort of parallel there to the back of the box, to the base of the box. So those are the threads coming through. Now these bolts here are M3, which means the diameter of the thread is 3 millimeters, but they are 10 millimeters long. Now I've actually got some little washers here, which I'm going to put on top here, because what I don't want to really do is kind of crush the wood as I'm putting on these little nuts. But it can be a bit fiddly to do this, and if you're having a problem getting little washers on there, don't worry about it. Now, for the nuts, this is also incredibly fiddly. So what I'm going to do here is put the nut on this side, turn it over, and then just start to tighten this bolt with my fingers. And what I'm wanting to do is just get that nut there just to start on the thread. And the process of doing that, of course, the other washers come off there, but I'm not going to worry about that. Let's do this one first. Okay, I have got an Allen wrench here, an Allen key. I'm going to put that on this side. I'm going to hold that in position. And then here, what I've got is a spanner set, which I've taken the 5.5 millimeter wrench head out here, and I've put it onto this screwdriver for ease of use. If I can do it with one hand, it'd be a miracle, won't it? Can I do it with one hand? No, I can't. Dear me. Why did I take it off there? Okay, let's just put my Allen key back on there again. Let's get my wrench here, and I'm just going to put that on and just tighten that up. And I don't want to make it too tight. I'm just going to watch on the back here and make sure that I'm not putting too much pressure there onto the circuit board. But that looks nice and neat. And then let's try with my other bolt again then. I need to make sure, of course, when I tighten that up, this other bolt fits through. Now, where did the washer go? There's the washer. Again, all a bit fiddly here. If you can't get the washer on, it's not the end of the world. Let's get my little nut on there. Again, super fiddly. Now, really what I should have done here, and I realized this after I glued it together, is I should have had this here, or I should have removed this paddle here and added the panel here instead. I've incidentally put 3 panels so that everything's at right angles. If I just put 2 panels, I wouldn't necessarily know that these were at right angles to each other. And let's just, oh, I can get it in there. We are good. We are fine. Now then, can I now just turn this using the Allen key? Yes, I can feel it's grabbed it there. That's nice. Okay, lock this in position. Again, get my screwdriver with a socket wrench on the end there. Tighten that up. Don't over tighten it too much. Over tighten it too much, and that's got my little USB power socket in place. So there you go. That's looking really, really nice. So just to finish this off, I'm not going to go any further with this, but just to clarify, this red wire here is a little bit out in the way, isn't it? So I could bend it back like that. I could get some more masking tape. I could stick that down. This resistor, let's see, this black wire is far too long, but I can again kind of put the resistor perhaps hidden behind the little leg there. Now, actually looking at this, look what I've done. I've actually made that black wire there a bit on the short side. So dearie me. So that black wire is too long. This black wire is too short. And as a result, the switch is slightly off center here. What I really wanted to have it was for the other way around. But maybe look, what I can do here is I can actually bend this around. And if I'm very fragile here, very careful, not fragile, very careful, then what I might be able to do, aha, look what I've been able to do there. Right, I've recovered it. Oh, and that way, yeah, again, masking tape that down at the back there. Just add in more layers of card here until you get the spacing of this switch off the base sufficient so that when you press down, it's going to press the switch in and out. And that's your electronic circuit done. And again, I don't think I would use double-sided tape here. I think this is probably better. If I get the piece of card here, what I can literally do, let's just clean up the edge here a little bit. What I could literally do is kind of bend this back and then fold it again and then fold it again to make kind of like layer upon layer of card. And then basically put a little bit of glue gun into each of these folds. Little blob, fold, blob of glue gun, fold, bit more glue gun, fold. When you've got it to the right height, test it, and then basically glue gun that in, glue gun the switch on top. We're good to go. So I think that's how I would do it. Good. Well, there you are then. Let's just plug it in one more time. Nice. Good. Fantastic.